Hi, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Conscious Grief series. Today, I am joined by Megan Hilluka. Megan is a grief coach. You are the host of the Grieving Moms podcast and also the founder of the Grieving Moms Haven. So welcome, Megan.
Thanks, Tara. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm very excited to be here with you and very grateful for the introduction that was made by somebody that we've both spoken to. So Megan, my first question really is, what led you to becoming a grief coach and to found the Grieving Moms podcast and the Grieving Moms Haven?
That's an interesting question because I would have never thought that I would be doing this work. Like if I would have looked at my life, before my daughter died, I couldn't even have fathomed it because I was so uncomfortable with grief. I was so uncomfortable with emotions. I was so uncomfortable with pain and other people's pain. But then my daughter died in May of 2016. So we'll be 6 years coming up. And I didn't know what was happening, like I'd never felt such deep pain. I'd never felt such excruciating pain and how long it lasted. And it was just overwhelming and insane and crazy. And yeah, I think from her death, I've learned so much about grief. I've learned so much about myself and really that there are tools and things that can help with grief. And so that's why I do everything I do. I take everything I learn. I'm like a constant learner about grief and life and human beings. I'm like fascinated by humans and how we work and how we interact. And I put it through the lens of grief. And how can this help with grief? How can this help? And so that's what my podcast is, having conversations with other people, but also me sharing what I'm learning and what I've learned. And then Grieving Moms Haven is all the tools that I've learned that can help with grief, that help you process emotions. So it's really because my daughter died it's like a painful thing because I would give it all up, to have her back. But it's been amazing to have these types of things to be able to help others and really see the gifts that I've been given through my grief, even though I would take her back in a heartbeat, of course.
Of course. And Aria, what such a beautiful name. Would you just share a little bit more about her and what happened?
Yeah, so she is our third child, and she was 15 months old. I was pregnant with our fourth child. So I was 36 weeks pregnant when she died. And she died in the night in her sleep, just suddenly. There was no warning, no anything. And I found her in the morning, and it's just horrific. It's not something you wish anybody would go through. But I can share a little bit about her as our little princess. She was just so happy. Her whole 15 months that she lived, she was like one of the happiest babies I've had. I now have 7 children, and she smiled at everyone. Everywhere we went, she was smiling at people, and I called her a little princess. I was so excited to have a little girl after 2 boys. She had hip surgery when she was 1. And so she was just learning how to get out of a sitting position and crawl and all these things that she couldn't really do because of her muscles in her leg and the surgery she had. So we're so proud of her, every single, thing that she learned. And I was spending a lot of time working with her, trying to stretch her legs. And now I'm so grateful because I spent so much time with her in her last months and weeks because I was doing that therapy with her and constantly holding her and stretching her legs. And she didn't really like it. So I was like talking to her and trying to distract her. And it was just, she was just our little princess.
Thank you so much for telling us more about her and that we can really get to know her a little bit, because she is the reason that your life just completely turned around. And it's really interesting that you say that you just, were one of these people that could not tolerate pain, that you were really sort of avoidant of even the word grief and other people's pain. And here you are now doing like incredible work and helping a lot of moms go through something, like you say, nobody wants to go through. So please, can you tell us a little bit more about what you have created through your coaching practice and the Grieving Moms Haven?
Yeah. And when you talk about that, so avoidant of pain, it's so interesting because I already felt emotionally shattered when Aria died, before she died. Like I didn't really have the capacity to feel my emotions. I wanted to numb them. If I was going to have a hard conversation, I would rather end the friendship than have that hard conversation. So I was super avoidant of anything painful. And when Aria died, it was like, I feel like grief forced me to learn how to feel. It forced me to learn how to have hard conversations. Everything I was doing, kicking and screaming, I didn't want to do it. But I feel like it forced me to. And so the thing I've learned with grief is that we have to feel it. We have to go through it. There's just no way around it. And if you try to ignore it or you try to shove it down, it's going to show up in your body, or your grief is going to force you later on in your life. It's going to come up, later. And the thing is, that might be exactly how it's meant to go for you, right? But it's going to come out at some point. And so what I want to help moms with is either after they've hit rock bottom and they are like, I don't know what to do with this grief. They've been fighting it and shoving it down. They're like, hey, now I know I need to deal with this. Or before they get to that point and they want to learn the tools and the skills to feel, to process, to move through grief, so that they can carry grief and joy. So inside of Grieving Moms Haven, I have a bunch of meditations that really help you connect with your body, to feel them, to feel sadness, pain, anger, every single emotion that is normal in grief that we fight because we're like, we shouldn't be feeling it. I don't want to feel it. If I feel it, I'm going to get stuck in it. If I feel it, I'm never going to get out of it. All these emotions, but they're so important to feel. And actually, the sooner you feel them, the sooner they get lighter. The sooner you move through them. They don't go away necessarily. They come in waves, and they'll come in waves the rest of our life. But the sooner we learn how to feel, the quicker that wave is, if that makes sense. It's not like a prolonged wave where we're resisting it and don't want to feel it and we're fighting it. But when we just allow ourselves to be with the emotion, we don't have to react from it, respond from it, just be with it. It's amazing how it just flows through your body. And so a lot of the work inside of Grieving Moms Haven is I have meditations, I have tapping meditations. I don't know if you know what tapping is, but you tap on different points, and they're all specific to child loss. So thoughts that come up with anger, thoughts that come up with guilt. And we do that tapping and then do it like a positive kind of like supportive tapping after. So we do like the struggles and then a more positive one at the end. So all those, and then we also do coaching calls. So it's almost like going to the gym. You go to gym and go to your yoga class or whatever workout class. This is like going to the gym, but for your emotional fitness. Like you have a coaching call that you come to, and you know that you're going to be doing grief work. You're going to be feeling, you're going to be doing this work that maybe you resist doing on your own because you don't really want to do it. Just like I don't always want to work out at the gym, but I go to the class and I know I'm going to work out. This is like you come to the coaching call and you're like, okay, I know this is a safe space for me to process. I can feel. And by the time we're done, I'm going to be grounded. I'm going to be back in like a okay feeling place. Just like I guide them through feeling the emotions. And at the end, I make sure they're all grounded and like feeling good when we're done. Mm-hmm. So it's really what I wish I had after Aria died, some place to come and be exactly where you're at. We're not trying to get rid of grief. We're not trying to fix you. We're just learning skills to process grief and be with grief, because that's what we all need to do. And it's painful. It's not a fun thing. None of us would like to be here. None of us would want to be grieving, right? But it is what has happened for anyone who is listening to this series, right? We know grief in our lives. And so learning how to feel and be with it is just going to be so supportive and helpful to anybody who's listening.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you shared about it being sort of like an emotional gym, because I have often say that it's like we've all been very obsessed with sort of our outer bodies and not so much with our hearts and our minds, and having a place, a supportive community where you can really be with your emotions. And I think that, you said that you wish you had a place to go to like that. So bearing in mind you had two small children, I know that you're an avid reader because I've seen the resources section on your website, which everyone, I strongly recommend you take a look at Megan's resources page, because you have listed like a great number of books on there. So thinking about your own grief process, and that you had two small younger children to take care of, when did you, or how did you find the time to grieve? Because I imagine it must have been difficult to do that.
Yeah, it was. And I think I struggled with that. Like, how do I make this time? I had a newborn. She was born 4 weeks after Arya died. And just like, how do you grieve when well, for me, I had PTSD and trauma. So I like had that stress of like, I need to keep everybody alive all the time. Like I couldn't ever relax either. So anytime I was around my kids, there was no way I was able to grieve and really be present with it, because what I found with grief is you have to feel safe to grieve. And when I was around my kids, I didn't feel safe. I couldn't ever let my guard down. So I actually had to be super intentional about it. I think this is one of the biggest struggles that a mom has when she has other children, or maybe, anybody, when we have a job, things that we are doing in our lives that we're like, I don't have time. I don't know how to make the time for this. But I had to be super intentional about it. Because I knew I had to grieve. I knew I had to feel these emotions. And actually I wanted to feel it, because it was like this constant thing inside of me that when I let it out, I felt better for just like, even if it was just like 5 minutes, I felt better for just a little bit, where it felt like it released a little bit, and then I would be able to breathe again, so I wanted to feel this. And I would ask friends can you watch my kids, and bring my kids to babysitters so that I could go home and go through Arya's clothes and cry and grieve and just really feel the emotions that I was feeling. And it was a lot of work. I also went to therapy. I went twice a week for almost a year, and it was like it was so much work. I think sometimes people can look at me and my life and be like, oh, well, that's not possible for me. Like I wouldn't be able to be happy like you are. And I'm like, I have worked so hard. I have spent hours doing the grief work, but I had to be intentional about it, and I had to make the time for it. And it wasn't easy. Like when I was going to therapy twice a week, I was like, what, this is my full-time job. This is what I do. Because you go there and then you're exhausted and you're tired, and it just takes a lot out of you, but it was so healing. And I'm so grateful that I spent that time doing that work and really being intentional about it, because there's no way I'd be where I am today without doing all that things that I did.
Yeah, amazing. And it's so true. Like sometimes healing can become like a full-time job, because it's really, really exhausting, and it takes a lot of work, and it can be a lot easier to just say, I don't have the time for this, and put it in a box, and who knows how else the grief is going to manifest, but it does. And I really like the fact that you are very, you talk about the intentional grieving, but with your clients or community, you really go into the body, and the tapping, and how I've always been very interested in the way that grief can manifest in our bodies as pain or illness. So yeah, you have it sounds like a very sort of embodied practice that you teach.
Yeah, because I think so often we talk about our grief, we talk about our pain, but we can't talk our way out of grief. We need to feel it. And it's very much a physical experience. It's not in our heads. It can be. Our thoughts can create a lot of suffering. But there's something I learned. It's called top, bottom up approach and top down approach. So it's like there's different ways to connect to your body, and your mind and your body are connected. And a lot of times we want to go in through the top down approach. That's like our mind and talking and really just getting logical about it and what makes sense and all this stuff. And it's actually, I've found with grief that it's even more helpful to go through the body, to go through feeling it first, because a lot of times, say we have a thought that's creating a lot of suffering, like, I could have done something to change the outcome of my child's death. And we're not even open to changing that thought because we feel so much guilt in our bodies, and it's so true to us. There's no way we're like, no, you're like, oh, well, what if it's not true? It's like, no, it is true. I could have done something different. And so when you begin to feel it in your body and experience it and sit with it and not try to get rid of the guilt, just be with it, then it's amazing how you might be able to open up to a different thought. Something, like, oh, maybe there wasn't anything I could have done differently. What if it's possible that was how it went and there was nothing I could have done to change it? But we have to feel it first. And when you're talking about how it can manifest in illness or sickness, and like I really do believe that it can if we shove it down. Think of like your emotions as energy, and the energy, if you think of, okay, so your body's like a container, like a vessel where water can flow through, the energy of an emotion. And all these emotions are constantly flowing through us, right? We don't really choose all the time what we're feeling. It's just going. And then we're like, oh, anger, don't want to feel that. We put up a wall, we block it. So we put up this dam in our bodies, and all of a sudden all this anger and the emotions getting stuck in our bodies. It's not flowing through. Mm-hmm. Now it's just building up in our bodies. It's going to resentment, rage, suppressed anger. It's going to come out and explode at some point, rather than just being like, oh, look at that. I'm feeling anger. Allowing it. What does it feel like in my body? Where is it in my body? We don't have to act from the anger. We don't have to do something from the anger, but we can be with the anger. And instead of putting up that dam, you let it flow through you. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, look at how quickly that anger flowed through me. And it might come again, but you would just let it flow through again, rather than putting up that dam. And all of a sudden you're stuck with the anger rather than, letting it flow through you. So it's just interesting how, if you imagine it like that, how all of a sudden the anger stuck in you and now it's in your body and it comes out, that energy is just moving around in your body, and it can change so many things. I just think it's really fascinating.
Yeah, I think it's super fascinating. And I noticed on your book list that you have The Body Keeps the Score. Yeah.
One of my favorite books.
Yeah. And we're really just coming into this awareness now of how the mind, the body, the soul is all, it's not that we're just coming into this awareness. I just think it's becoming more mainstream and people are really getting it now, which is really brilliant. I wondered if, even your own story, I think really offers hope to people, because what you're sharing is, by really like doing the work, like you can move through this. But I wondered if there was any other things that you would like to share about, to really just speaking to people who have lost a child, which is just, really just beyond difficult. If there's anybody listening right now, what would you say to them in particular?
The thing that's hard about it is like, there's nothing really to say. There's nothing I can say to fix it or make it better, because the worst thing that can happen has happened. And so I can't use words to fix your pain. But I know it might not be like what you want to hear, but there is hope. You can live with grief and joy. The pain doesn't have to last forever, and it doesn't mean you're moving on. You will grieve the rest of your life. It will be there, but when you learn how to carry the grief, you can live with grief and joy, and you never ever have to move on. You never have to forget. In order to find any sort of healing or life after loss does not mean you have to forget or move on. I think that's a big fear that we can have, is like, if I quote unquote feel a bit better, then does that mean I'm forgetting them? But you're never forgetting. You will never forget. You'll never move on. And one of the biggest things I would say is have compassion for yourself, grace for yourself while you're grieving. Give yourself the time and the space to grieve. Listen to yourself. A lot of people will have a lot of things to say about your grief and what you should and shouldn't be doing. And your grief is your own. And listen, truly listen to what you need, not what you're fearful of or what you don't want to do, but you truly know how to grieve inside of you if you listen to yourself and if you get present with yourself and you allow yourself to do that. So that's what I would say, is don't listen to what everybody else tells you what to do and not to do. Like, do what feels right for you, not what feels best, not what feels easy, but what feels right for you.
Very wise words, Megan. Thank you. And well, perhaps you could share about the work that you do. Like, if somebody's listening and thinking, I'm really connecting with this, and I'm what is the Grieving Mums Haven? Could you share more about that?
Yeah. So if you want to join Grieving Moms Haven, you go to www.grievingmomshaven.com. And I actually am offering a free month to anybody on here. Or was it 2 months? Sorry, I don't remember what I offered to you. Is 2 months or 1 month? I think
we got to say 2 months now.
Yeah, I think it's 2 months. 2 months free inside of Grieving Moms Haven. And what that entails is it has 2 monthly coaching calls. And actually right now there is a bonus call every month. So there's 3 where we are going through the Life After Child Loss program. So this is a program that I have made that's not like, I know we kind of want like a step-by-step guide, like, here, how do I do this? What do I do? But there's not really a step-by-step guide, right? So this is like a framework that you can go through and learn more about yourself, more about your grief, how you grieve, what's right for you. It's not like me telling you what to do with your grief. It's like giving you ideas and things to look at, and then you look at your own life and your own grief. So I go through the Caring Grief framework, and we're going to go through it together in Grieving Moms Haven, just to have a little bit more help and guidance through it. So there's those 3 coaching calls, and then all the meditations and tappings that are specifically for anger, like apathy, like numbness, sadness, guilt, all these emotions that we have. And then you get access to the Life After Child Loss program, and then a community with all the moms inside of there. So we have a private chat that we can chat in between calls, which has been really awesome. The moms really love it. And truly, like, I don't know, I didn't know how I was going to help moms when I first started doing this work and diving into grief and whatever. And I'm just truly grateful for being able to make this community and this space, because even the moms, sorry if you can hear the helicopter, the moms inside of there, like, they wish they would have had this sooner. They wish that they would have been a part of this group sooner, because even some of them have been grieving for many, many years already. And they're like, I numbed it for so long. And so I got some sort of healing. I felt a little bit better. I've had some joy, but I've learned so much more as I've joined this and learned about my emotions and my body and what grief feels like and looks like, and what's okay to feel. I think we judge ourselves so much in grief. And when you can just come and it's a safe space where maybe you don't have any place in your whole life that is safe, that your family is like trying to get you to move on, and your friends are like, why can't you just let the past be in the past, like move forward? This is a place that you don't have to do that. You don't have to move on. You don't have to get over it. It's a place your grief is welcome. No matter how broken you feel, no matter how big it feels, your grief is okay. There's nothing wrong with you. And there are tools to help you, support you. It's like like imagine the waves of grief that come. I think we all know what those feel like. It's like a life jacket that helps you ride them. So that's essentially what Grieving Moms Haven is. It's a place of hope, a place for you to come and be exactly where you're at, and a place to see hope and feel hope. A lot of people feel hope for the first time in their bodies when they come there.
I love how you describe it with the life jacket. And I think that one thing I'd also say to people, because I know somebody who's part of your community and how much she loves you and loves the work that you're doing and the support that you're providing. So I have a glowing testimonial, which is how we are connected. And just to tell people that it's really for mothers with children of all ages. It's not just for people, mums who are, bereaving young children. It's like, it's all ages, for all people.
Yeah. And actually, even if you're grieving, like a baby that died in pregnancy, because I recently had somebody say to me, like, do you have any tools or things that can help with early stillborn loss? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, everything I do stuff for child loss, baby loss, like you lost a baby. And she was like, I think it almost took her back. Like, she was trying to minimize her loss because it was in pregnancy and it was early. I don't know what the terms they use. I call it, they lost a baby. And she was kind of like, oh, I thought it was a month, so maybe I should be doing better by now. And I'm like, no. If you are feeling it and you are grieving, like, you have lost a baby. Your baby has died. It doesn't matter what age, whenever it is, you've lost a child. And so I think it's very important to acknowledge that any stage of life that your baby has died, the pain is the same as in, like, you have felt the most pain you've had in your life. And there's so much tools and support for you in whatever age it is.
I'm really, really glad that you brought that up. Because yes, that poor lady feeling like she wasn't deserving of the same support. And it's a huge grief. It's a huge grief. So yeah, I'm really pleased that you brought that up. And I also wanted to, because I so admire this about you, and you said that it was related to the death of Aria with your family, which is extraordinary, that you're a mum to 7 kids. And can you tell people, like, what you're doing right now?
Yeah. So we are traveling the United States right now. We've been on the road for 6 months. We bought a school bus, regular school bus that kids rode in, and we gutted it and made it into like a motorhome. It has everything: a bathroom, kitchen, bedrooms, bunk beds. We built it all. And it is because of Aria that we are doing this. When she died, we really learned that we could die at any moment. My husband could, I could, any of our other children. Just because we went through one horrific loss doesn't give us a pass for any other loss in our life. I think that's when we're in it, I'm like, okay, we would never have any more, nothing else would happen to us because we've already been through so much. But that's not true. It can happen again and again to any of us. And so the biggest thing that we've learned is we want to live today. We want to fully live as much as we can. And I want to say that I had to do the grief work, the deep work, before I could get to this place. I had to sit in that muck, in that pain, and that deep, dark hole before I could even get to a place where I can think about anything else, But we are so grateful to be doing this. And it's because of her that we learned, we don't want to wait till we're retired and be like, well, Justin died now. Okay, well, we waited all our life to get to retirement and now Justin died. Or, like all these things that can happen. We're not healthy, whatever it is. We want to live. The only moment we have right now is right now, this moment. And so if we can live this moment and connect with our children, connect as a couple, as a family, that's really our goal.
So inspiring. Really just incredible. I love it. What my final question to you is, how would you describe what conscious grief is?
Yeah, to me, conscious grief is being present with grief and taking an active role in your grief. When you first start grieving, it can be like, I don't know what to do with this. I've never felt this way before. I don't know how to deal with this intensity of emotions. But taking an active role versus a passive role is like feeling, sitting with it, maybe being intentional with it, like going to, like, say, my coaching calls where we sit and feel it, or going to work out and exercise, or going to therapy, or whatever it is, taking an active role and being super conscious as you're grieving. That's kind of what it means to me. It's just being super present in your grief rather than trying to numb it and get rid of it, almost welcoming it in and being like, okay, this is grief. This is how it feels. I'm going to feel this and let it move through me.
And I think that's exactly what you do with your work, right?
Yeah. Yep. So that's why that means that to me.
Yeah, I love that. Megan, before we finish, I just want to give you the opportunity if there's anything else that you wanted to share before we close.
I guess just the same, if you're grieving and you're feeling the pain, to give yourself that permission to feel it, permission to grieve, the space to grieve. Stop judging if it's enough, if it's painful enough, or if the loss was enough, or if it was big enough. Just let yourself be with what you feel. We don't need to judge it. We don't need to like put any thoughts around it or versus just feeling it and being with it. So yeah, just give yourself grace and compassion. And if you're a grieving mom, come join Grieving Moms Haven. There's a link that you'll get a couple free months. So there's no reason to not come join.
Yeah, absolutely. We will get the link below this, and just thank you so much, Megan. It's just been amazing to get to know you and connect with you and interview you. And thank you for the incredible work that you're doing.
Thank you, Tara, for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you, everyone, for watching. Bye.